West Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media, Business TV. My name is Pamela Keim and your host. And the spirit of the show is to introduce West Michigan to all the businesses, people, organizations that can help us all thrive in our daily lives. And I have a very special guest for you today, and her name is Leslie Fuenzo, and she owns Coach with Leslie. And I wanted to bring her on as one of my first guests because all of us are kind of having a little bit, some of us may have a little bit of anxiety about the future, but we know we have to keep going and thrive. So I'm going to tap right into her, and this is what we're going to have a conversation. She's going to go through some great questions that most of us must have. But I want to introduce to you Leslie to the show, and let's start talking. I know I should have done that really, Leslie. But anyways, I just wanted you to have on the show because I feel it myself, a little bit of the uncertainty that we feel with everything that we've been bombarded with the last 5 months, and how we're going to finish out in 2020 and what is 2021. I know you can't predict the future, but maybe your program. And I'm really interested in the 5-week program that you have available. But the program that you have available, programs you have available to help people like myself and other people that are out there. It's like, where are we going, and how can I stay away from some of the negativity and be positive? So welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, Pamela.
Okay, so let's talk about, you've been in coaching for your pretty much your whole career, right?
Yes.
Right, and you've done a lot of one-on-one and group and for organizations.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about what is Coach with Leslie, and how can it help people out here that are watching today?
So what I believe about coaching is it's really the opportunity to draw the best out of the person. I think we all have brilliance within us, and sometimes it just takes another person to help draw out that brilliance. And so that's what I'm really all about, is helping people uncover their natural gifts and talents, and then how to really tap into those, especially in really challenging times. Historically, Pamela, this is not the first time we have, as peoples, have faced challenges.
Right.
We faced it as, the United States, but then as communities and worldwide events, but really tapping into what's in there already and how I can best help myself and then best help others.
Okay, well, that's really good. And I think sometimes you don't always see the talents within yourself, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then other people see it a little bit more than you. And sometimes you're focusing on trying to improve an area of yourself that really, that's not where your gift is. That'll come. Does that make sense?
It does.
So so let's talk about when you meet up with people, right?
Sure.
People
Yes.
are calling, right?
Yes.
I mean, what are you hearing most when people are picking up the call, saying, Leslie, I need help in?
Well, it's really what they're paying attention to.
Okay.
So what I tell people first and foremost is think about how you're starting your day. So there's a story that I love to tell, and it's not my invention, Wayne Dyer, and maybe you know
Right. Yes,
Wayne.
I do.
Okay. So he talks about the nature of an orange. And he says, if you squeeze an orange, you're only ever going to get orange juice. You're not going to get any other kind of juice, right? Because it's the nature of the orange. So we all are squeezed every single day. Pandemic aside, really, in our just everyday life, we have stressors, we have things that squeeze us. So if we're not putting good stuff in us, what's going to come out? There's not going to be anything good to come out, right? And I know this is true for me too, because the other day I had it happen and I was like, I know better. But we all face frustrations, and it was a particularly frustrating day. My internet connection was fine, but I couldn't open any of my MS Office apps. Nothing. Outlook,
Wow.
PowerPoint, and I had an hour and a half before I had a presentation virtually. Then I take a sip of coffee and I'm like, what's in my coffee? I think it was a bug. I don't know. Luckily, I was in the kitchen and I spat it out in the sink, but it was just like one thing after another, right?
Right.
And so it culminated in my husband walking into my office, and he knows when I've got the door shut, I'm usually doing something. I don't want to be disturbed. Luckily, I wasn't on the phone, right? But I kind of barked at him like, man, it's just, you've always got to be aware of what you're putting in so that when those moments come, you're not going to bark at people. You're not going to go off. You're not,
Right.
So I guess my point in sharing that, Pamela, is it happens to all of us, but being aware and paying attention and being mindful what we are paying attention to. So avoid starting your day with the news, avoid starting your day with social media, avoid starting your day with email. That's somebody else's agenda for you. So start your day with something that is inspirational to you and motivational to you, and that E word, exercise, right?
Right.
And meditation. So I have a morning routine that includes a meditative practice. I love YouTube because there's some great guided meditations on there. You don't have to figure it out by yourself.
Right.
And yoga. So there, again, YouTube free yoga sites. So you don't have to make it up as you go along. You can follow people. And then I do some inspirational reading and journaling, and then I'm off to the races. But that's an hour prep time that really gets me centered and focused.
Okay, yeah. I did a lot of that in the beginning, and now the last few months, I will, to be honest, I'm off my game.
I know.
I think a lot of us are, and that's why I wanted you to have on the show. Yeah. The mindset has been that term that many people have had their programs out there to build that. I mean, I've used them in the past. But let's talk about that, because this has been, at this time, what's going on in the world today. Mm-hmm. Nothing is more being challenged than some of these programs that have been out there. So you talk about building a mindset. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about what that would entail and what people that are watching here could say. You know what? That's what I need. That's what I need to move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So the biggest objection I get when I talk about that, especially when I talk about the morning routine, is I don't have time. Right? I don't have time for that. I just want to challenge you a little bit about the fact that making exchanges and really looking at how you're spending your time and where you're spending your time. So maybe you don't have an hour to spend in the morning because you have little ones and they're preparing to go back to school, and you've got a spouse or a partner at home, or there's a lot going on in your family. But what about 5 minutes? What about 5 minutes just for you to get centered and focused to help you begin the day? And then maybe exchanges throughout the day, right? Because I always challenge people, phones are ubiquitous, and almost everybody I know has one in their purse or their pocket, or and using that as a tool and not as a crutch, right? So using it purposefully and thinking about, what are you looking at when you're on your phone? What are you looking at in social media? And is it helpful to you? That's always the question. Is what I'm doing going to propel me forward, or is it keeping me stuck? And that's where I work with people. It's like, let's look at what might be keeping you stuck and how we can make some exchanges to move you forward. So you mentioned the program, the 5 and 5 performance coaching program that I have.
I saw that right off the bat. And in 5 weeks,
yes.
It said in here 5 weeks you could build a new mindset,
yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 5 weeks isn't very long.
It's not, but it's based on the fact that, 5 weeks is a jump start.
Right, okay.
And here's what I'll tell you, Pamela, time is going to pass anyway.
Yeah.
So my question to somebody is always, where do you want to be in 5 weeks? Are you happy? Because maybe you're happy where you're at. Maybe you feel like you're thriving and everything's great and I'm good, thanks. But if you're not, let's talk about what it could be like in 5 weeks, what it could be like in 5 months, what it could be like in a year, 5 years. I've got to do things today that are going to propel me forward.
Okay. Yeah, even this interview thing, this is new. This mic here, this is to keep the social distance. Right? The studio, where you were more closer together is closed. So that's a whole new thing, right? And then just trying to, find people today that, they have the mindset to help you. Is that right? It's all who you hang out with?
Oh, yeah.
Right? So some of the questions that we were going to ask is, Okay, so right here it says, how do you recommend people, besides staying focused on social media, but if they will, throughout the day of all the chaos, is it just like people say, just pulling over and relaxing, or, basically we're in our car a lot right now, getting from A, or we're in front of we are virtual and we're in front of our computer. It's almost, when you worked in an office, Leslie, you used to be able to get up and go get coffee. You used to have that socialization. A lot of us are using our phones to make up for that.
Sure.
And it's not, I don't know if it's helping or making it more difficult. So what are your thoughts? I want to get right with that because I know that that's happening to me. I'm in front of my computer all day that I normally would have been walking around.
Oh, sure. So get up and walk around. So intentionally, right? So my message is a couple. Figuring out how I can be more intentional and not just responding, but really being thoughtful. So putting in breaks. So I have a routine, or what I try to do.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
People, if you can hear that, they're putting up solar panels up there, which is going to save, like, what did he say, 90% of the energy bill? So you might want to look into that. But that's, I'm sorry if you can hear that.
Okay.
Go ahead. Keep going.
Yeah.
Back to you.
So being intentional about taking some breaks. So think about 60 to 90 minute work sessions. So you're working on your computer at a project. I'm a big believer in setting a timer. And when that goes off, that's an opportunity for me to get up, do a stretch, take a walk around. And now that it's nice weather, and it's been a little hot and humid some days, but getting outside for even 5 minutes, or getting up and doing a stretch. And then the other technique that I encourage people to really use is a breathing technique. And there's a number of them, but so I mentioned yoga. If you've ever taken a yoga class, one of the things they typically teach you is about the 3-part breath, or there's different names, some of it calling belly breathing. But all too often, we are just breathing into the very top of our lungs, but really filling our lungs and belly with air, and then exhaling. Some people like to count. So there's a method called box breathing where you inhale to the count of 4, hold it for 4 counts, exhale for 4, and hold your exhale for 4 counts. So thinking of it in the shape of a box, right? Inhale, hold, exhale, hold.
One of the things I think talking to people, even though people are very, want to be very positive, is worry. Let's talk about how worry can really bog you down and keep you stuck.
Yeah.
Don't you?
The old adage, worry is like a rocking chair. You feel like you're going someplace, but you're not really, right? When you're rocking back and forth. So when I'm ruminating on something, so being aware, first of all, that I'm worrying, and then asking myself, is the direction of my thoughts really helping me? Right. Chances are it's not if I'm worried about what could happen. And most of the time, things that we worry about are not going to come true. And you mentioned earlier, there's no way for us to predict the future, right? I have control over my thoughts. And when I pay attention to a thought that's not serving, I want to switch it up. And
how do you do that? Because it's kind of like, don't think of an elephant, don't think of an elephant. And all you're doing is thinking of an elephant, right?
Right.
How do you switch that up? Quickly, even if you caused some of the things to be worried about, and you blame yourself, as we all do, so that we get back to that.
Yeah.
What do you do then?
So have a couple of go-to things that help get me refocused. So again, I do some inspirational reading, or I listen to some motivational people, or I have a couple of songs. Music works too, right?
Okay.
Music that is inspirational and positive and uplifting, and maybe it's simply an instrumental. Or the theme from Rocky is a great instrument, right? Gets you all charged up.
It does.
Yeah.
It
so
does.
I like quotes as well.
Right.
So I have some quotes. The other thing I have taped in my office is nice things that people have said about me. So testimonials from my clients.
Right.
And so I go back and use it. Like, this gets me refocused, gets me recharged, and gets me moving in a new direction. So again, it's always about choice and awareness and being willing to move forward and not stay stuck.
Okay, yeah, and that's the one mostly I think, when worry, anxiety. So like you said, if we were to ask you a question, like let's say we were having coffee, right? And I had a couple minutes with you. You probably get this a lot, even if you're on a plane, right? And they'd say, Leslie, what is the one thing I could do to improve my life today? I mean, if I was looking at you and I knew you were a coach, and I just had a conversation with you, and you probably can get a feel for people in a short period of time after you've been coaching with them, right?
Yes. So one of the things I always recommend to people, or I ask, is, do you have a practice of gratitude? a practice of being grateful. And there's a number of ways to do that. My personal practice is I have a small journal by my bedside, and at the end of the day, I'm going to write 3 to 5 things. This interview will be in my journal this evening, right? Because this is I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Okay.
As well as other kinds of things. And maybe it's just, you know what, the sun was out today, or I had a really fun
It is going to be a beautiful weekend.
Yeah.
Right,
Conversation with a friend, or I got reconnected with somebody I haven't seen in a while, or you know what, my technology worked today. I'm always grateful when my technology works.
Yeah, I'm grateful for the studio that we were able to come in and interview. The other studio I normally have has been closed. But that's
so
exactly the same.
and maybe it doesn't have to go to the written word. I know people have shared with me that their gratitude practice is before they get out of bed in the morning, they just think of a few things they're grateful for. I know a friend of mine who's an author. She was always saying, you know, she was grateful for her husband, who was her partner, was in bed next to her. She said, every morning I wake up, I'm so glad that Roger's next to me. Now, I know not everybody has that,
Right.
but most of us, I would guess, have a really nice, comfortable bed to sleep in.
Right.
And we're going to go downstairs and we're going to turn on our shower or our bath or whatever we're going to do. And there's going to be water in the tap, and it's going to be hot or cold. Right? And we're going to go in the kitchen. And there's probably going to be resources in our kitchen that will allow us to prepare a meal, or at very least make coffee. So we want those everyday kinds of things that we often take for granted. We want to begin to focus and be grateful for. And then we can be grateful for the bigger things too. But having an attitude of gratitude, I guess
Yes, that's
right?
kind of like what you hear. It's kind of interesting. That's what we hear the most from everyone that has been coaching, starting out with gratitude, and sometimes we forget when we feel overwhelmed. I guess that what I'm feeling is feeling overwhelmed, trying to figure out how other friends of mine too, as to how they're going to pivot.
Yeah.
That have been the social events, planning, and all of the things that, networking. We're huge networking,
I know.
way we connect now.
I know.
And some people I haven't seen since February, and I don't know if I'll see them anytime soon under these conditions, right? That's how I kind of feel. I see them on social media, but that too. When you're looking at people, okay, real quickly, how do you, like social media? We all use it for a tool, like yourself.
Yep.
Tomorrow, the internet is a huge opportunity. The internet doesn't care where you come from. You just it judges you actually.
Well, algorithms, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it just does. It doesn't matter where you come from, where you go, what your walk of life is. You put content out there and it already takes it and judges it and moves it. You can find out really quickly if it's a good. Now, it also has a dark side. We do compare ourselves to each other. We do look at people that they seem like they're happier, or they have a better life, or they're figuring out this better than you. How do you tell people that are into this, they have to use social media on a regular basis, not to get so into it like we have been?
It's really easy to get sucked in. And part of the challenge with social media is the dopamine hit we get from likes from our posts and that kind of thing. And so it feels good. And our brain loves dopamine, right? We like to feel good. So being aware of that, number one. Number two is being real purposeful about your use. You mentioned it's a tool. And so what do I want this tool to do for me? And how am I going to use it? And how much time do I really want to devote to it? So if I go out and I make my post, try not to get sucked into, that's the challenge. And I have a couple of groups that I follow and people that I appreciate in those groups. And so I want to pay attention to them. Otherwise, I don't read a lot of, I don't scroll down my news feed. I know that there's a couple things I want to do. I get those things taken care of, and then I shut it down. I've also not necessarily unfriended, but I've stopped following a couple of people where I just felt they were pretty negative. And not necessarily that we didn't agree on our point of view, but they were very disparaging in their remarks of other people.
Right.
And I'm a big believer that you and I don't have to agree. You are very much entitled to your opinion, just as much as I'm entitled to mine. But I want to come at it from a point of curiosity. Wow, that's really interesting. As opposed to, making somebody else wrong or making them feel bad. And I feel like that's a lot of what people are trying to do. So you mentioned I want to talk a little bit about comparison too.
Okay.
Right? Because we look at somebody else's life and what they put out there. Well, most of the time, people put their best stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
Their fabulous vacation, their beautiful new whatever purchase, right? Not the ugly fact that, I had to go and clean my toilets today, right? We all got to do that, or some of us have to do that. There's always the negative side. But know that I might be at a very different place in how I'm handling this than you are, right? I might really like a couple I know. The guy really loves quiet and he's very much an introvert, okay? The spouse is very much an extrovert and really misses, you mentioned networking and parties and all that. And so the husband was like totally geeked about when this first happened. I get to spend 3 weeks at home, locked away in my room. That's not for everybody.
Right.
And so how we handle things is a lot of our personality.
Sure.
But I don't want to compare myself to you. We talked about strengths at the very beginning of the conversation.
Right.
And appreciating what it is that I bring to the table is so important, and know that it's different from you, and that's okay. There's no need for me to compare. Every one of us brings value to the table. It's how I capitalize on the value I bring that I feel is important, and that's the work I do with my clients.
Okay, good. I'm going to kind of go there. Okay, so let's go into 2. Okay. All right. On this, real Leslie, we were talking about social media. All of us suffer from this, and in some degrees, we all want to be liked.
Yes, we do.
I know you like those likes and dopamine, but even in our relationships, even in our families, even our business, we all want to be liked. Sometimes that can be not a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Because we can't be ourselves because we're afraid we're not going to be liked. Yeah. So what do you do with people that are dealing with that, with social media and everything that comes in?
Yeah. Well, trying to uncover really maybe what's behind that. And so sometimes people are what we call people pleasers,
right,
to their own detriment and their own expense. So helping them understand what is it costing them to be liked, and no, not everybody's going to like you. I mean, that's just a fact of life, right?
Right.
But one of the things that I believe that stems from, Pamela, is how we were raised, I say, when people were living in small groups of people back thousands and thousands of years ago. Right. If we did something that made that tribal leader angry, or even the head of our family angry, the risk to us was we were going to get kicked out.
Right.
And if I got kicked out, my chances of survival were pretty null. So that is in our DNA, if you will.
Yeah, I would think so.
And so because those people didn't make it, so that gene didn't get passed along. So we are more hyper aware and hypersensitive to that criticism. So understanding that, first of all, we are going to judge. It's a natural kind of thing for people to judge. Okay. And what I tell people is to use some visualization techniques. So I had a client I was working with, and she was really struggling with a coworker, and they weren't getting along, and we were talking about but she said, I feel like she just doesn't like me. And I said, here's what you need to do. It's kind of like the idea of the invisibility cloak in Harry Potter series, right? Yeah. But put up a shield. Maybe it's plexiglass, maybe it's some other kind of material, but I've got this invisible shield around me, and nothing you say or nothing you do is going to penetrate that shield. It is just going to bounce right off. If I can visualize that and have that awareness when I'm meeting with you, because there's people we just have to work with that we know don't like us, or we don't like them, but we've got to figure this out. So if I can put that shield up and know that will bounce off, it's not going to penetrate me, I can do what I need to do.
Good. That's really good. All right, because I suffer from that myself. Oh, can you share with us, really, as we close up here, what your program could do for people?
Sure. Well, I know what it's done for me, and it helped me make a major shift in my own personal and professional life. So I think if somebody's really struggling and they just want to have a conversation about how can you spend 5 weeks really focused on getting yourself to move forward. If you're interested in taking that next step, then let's have a conversation.
How much time is that in the 5 weeks? Just an hour, half hour?
Well, it's more than the 1 hour coaching session each week.
Yes.
But again, we're talking about exchanges. So what I found with most people is they have more spare time than they realize when
I think so.
really analyze, our day.
Yeah.
Because some of it's sleeping and some of it's eating and working. Obviously, work's a big part of it. And
Sure.
it's time with your family. But then what am I doing with those other 16 to 20-ish hours? And where can I make some exchanges to really, again, I'm all about propelling people forward and helping them discover what's inside them that they can tap into, because sometimes it's been dormant for a really long time and they don't know. So the one thing I have to share, because it's my favorite story about strengths, and you might know from the Strengths Finder book that Tom Rath wrote about.
Okay.
But he compares Rudy Rudinger, who played for Notre Dame, and the movie Rudy is based on his personal story.
Okay.
And Joe Namath. Well, Rudy wanted to play football for Notre Dame. That was his goal. He did finally, right?
Yeah,
After
yeah.
a lot of work. But what about Joe Namath? Joe Namath was a natural athlete and had natural abilities that he tapped into. Now, some of you are like, who's Joe Namath? And he's doing ads on TV right now, and he's probably in his 70s.
But our generation dates us a little bit, doesn't
exactly,
it? It dates us, right?
But think about any natural athlete or anybody that has, we all have natural strengths. The point Tom Roth makes in the book is, what if Rudy had tapped into those natural strengths and abilities as opposed to working really hard on something that did not come natural to him? So that's what I just
with Rudy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And we I mean, if anybody has not seen the movie, I recommend it. Yeah, it's he just never gave up.
Right. And there's some really good qualities about that. And I'm not trying to discount him or his story.
Right.
Because we love the hero's journey in that story, and we love the fact that he finally got there, right? Mm-hmm. But what if, right? So what if you uncovered your natural strengths and abilities? What I like to say, what if you uncovered your brilliance and then really focused, like doubled down on that? Where would that get you?
We're wrapping this up. Let's talk about what's going on. What do you have what would you like to share with everyone? How can they reach you to do some of your programs to help them under uncertainty thrive?
Well, they can find me on Facebook. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can reach out to me via my website, which is coachwithleslie.com.
Okay.
And so I would love to connect with people if they're interested in no harm in having a conversation. No commitment on the person's part. But I would be curious to know what people have to say and what they think.
And especially you can, you're saying with the virtual thing before we wrap up, is everybody's kind of going beyond West Michigan. Before it was mostly you wanted to connect. Mm-hmm. And now with the virtual technology that we have, and people got to get used to it. You probably see that too. Like you could probably coach them and, hey, you know what? Have you ever thought about growing your business this way
yes.
with the virtual world?
Absolutely.
I think Leslie Forenzo from Coach with Leslie, look her up on the internet. I know she will help you if you feel stuck or you want to move into a different direction or try a different avenue with your business. She is a great person that will be able to help you do that. So my name is Pamela Kime from Grand Tap Media, and we will catch you next time on Grand Tap Media Business TV. Take care, everyone.